Didn't turn it on.
It's already working.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a pen on.
Did you turn it on?
No, just came on.
Well, the last person.
Oh, maybe you do because you have to try it.
To like connect it, plug it in,
This is what I do.
and it'll like basically like connect.
I have an iPad, but I don't have a stylus. This is
Mine was already working. So, I don't know.
this fancy.
Really? You must have connected mine because
I think it probably was.
You'd be so proud of me. I almost said something sexy.
same here. By Zeiss.
Ready?
The ones,
Alright.
the ones by Zeiss.
We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the pledge to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first off, we'll report there was no action taken in closed session. Also, let the record show that all board members are present and accounted for. And now I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to communications. For our board members, any written communications you should have in your little packet there in front of you. Also, for members of the public who may wish to address the Board of Trustees regarding any special board meeting agenda item during board consideration of that item, please note that if you wish to address the Board of Trustees on an agenda item, you should do so when that specific item is called by the board president. Let's see, for submission to comment in person, please fill out a request to be heard card and give it to board staff. And your name will be called during the public comment agenda item. During the specific agenda item, comments are limited to 2 minutes. To submit a comment online via Assembly Gamut meetings, enter your name and email address. The board assistant will provide your comment to the board. And then finally, to submit a comment via YouTube, type your comment in the live chat, and the superintendent will share your comment with the board as appropriate. Now, with that, we'll now entertain comments from the public on any item that is not currently on the agenda. Please note that while we are paying attention, we do hear you, that we will most likely not respond to that item today since it's not an agendized item. Having said that, is there anyone who'd like to speak to the board on an item that is not on the agenda? Okay, there's no one here present. We'll give some folks online an opportunity to chime in. All right, seeing no comments online, we'll move on to reports. We'll start with Robla Education Foundation.
John looks different tonight.
Yes, shaved.
Invite Mr. Raven to provide his update today. He's hard at work at the Robla Education Foundation fireworks booth, which he has asked me to remind the public is in full swing outside Bing's Market. until 10 p.m., starting at 9 a.m. every day. Sales are brisk, but it's not too late to go out there and get your fireworks. And it's also not too late to join him and our other volunteers who are working really hard out there in the heat. Lots of fun fireworks to purchase, including my new favorite, unicorn poop. If you want to know what it is and what it does, go visit the fireworks booth.
You can't light it right I now. was gonna say you don't want to do it then.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr.
Curiosity might get me on that one.
Okay.
Do we have anyone from the Robla Teachers Association? How about Classified School Employees Association? Our superintendent's report.
Good evening. This is quite odd for me to be delivering my last superintendent's report here in Robla, but here goes. My report tonight is about the Robla board, and I'd like to say a few words about each of you individually. Raynell Hamilton Starks, our newest board member, came to us through a recommendation with Mr. Barnes. And in my book, anybody who is recommended by Mr. Barnes is a quality person. So she came in with lots of positivity going in her direction. I am so pleased that she's already making her voice heard. She was a very enthusiastic participant in the selection of the new superintendent, gave us some great insights there, and I know that will be a very successful decision, and we're so pleased to have her input on that. She has brought to us a new perspective, and I know that the Robla School Board works together as a great team, and that you will grow as a team because of her being on the board, and I look forward to watching to see what happens there. Sharona Devine, she used to be the newest board member, but now she is an experienced member of the team. Sharona has shown us that she is a great listener, and I love to watch how engaged she is at every board meeting. She truly listens actively and asks important questions, and we know that she is really paying attention to what's happening in Robla. She stands up for what she believes in, and that is such an admirable trait for you to have. And I have watched you grow. In the short time that you have been a board member, I have watched you grow so much already, and I can't wait to see how you continue to grow. Thank you. Ken Barnes, now a very experienced member of the board. The words I wrote down here is that Ken is insightful and innovative, and I think we see evidence of that all the time as we work to solve problems in Robla. Ken has shown that he is hungry to learn, and I have been lucky enough to participate with him in a variety of conferences and other activities over time that shows me that he is really invested in education and really wants to make Robla the best it can be. He has been an important member of the Labor Management Initiative team and has helped that team to develop some important relationships with employees, with our employee associations, and he makes significant contributions every time we are together. So, Ken, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Nuvia. Nuvia brings a unique perspective to the board. She was our first board member to be a business owner. The public, I think, sees Nuvia as a quiet person, but I watch her and see that she is always listening. Nuvia has shown that she is present in the community. She is a face that employees have come to know because Nuvia is always showing up at events and activities in our schools. I have watched Nuvia come to understand how the district works, and she makes important contributions. And maybe, as I said, the community doesn't see it, but I assure you, when we're on the other side of that door, Nuvia has a lot of important things to say, and we're all better off because of what she brings to the table. Mr. DeLuce, Craig DeLuce, our longest-standing board member, someone I have known for a very long time. Craig knew me before I was a superintendent. He was on the board that selected me And so that was 13 years ago. So you could blame him for all of this. Craig, you are one of the smartest, most informed people that I know. And I know that we are always on target here in Robla because you help make sure that that is indeed the case. You make sure that we follow the rules and the regulations that we need to follow. But what I love about you is that you always remember the people, and you always remember that whatever policies and procedures we're talking about, you are always thinking about how it will impact the people that go to school here, the families that live here, the people that work here. Craig, you are an extremely unique individual who lives the example of being a member of an effective team. And I have watched you lead this team and hold this team to a very high standard for working together. And the unique ability of this school board to accomplish great things, Craig, it has to do with all five of you, but I give you lots of credit for setting that tone long ago. I want to say something about Ramon, who sits here next to me. Ramon and I have only worked together for since October, not even a year. And I have to say that Ramon is energetic and insightful, and I love the perspective that he brings. He always has a new, fresh way of looking at things, and he is so great about saying, well, I know that's how you've always done it. He says it very nicely. I know that's how you've always done it, Ruben, but maybe there's another way to do this. And he has really made a big impact in a very short period of time. And I am sorry that I'm going to miss how you will grow, but I am thrilled that you have been able to join our team. And I always tell him, I'm so happy that we saved him from Twin Rivers. So with that, I will say that I am more grateful than I could ever express in any words for the time that I have been superintendent here in Robla. And I'm going to miss you all a great deal. That's my report.
Okay, we will now move on to board member reports. We'll start with Trustee Devine.
We are going to miss you very much also. So my report is, earlier today, I volunteered at the fireworks stand. So everybody go get your fireworks from Bing's. There's some great deals, and come support your schools.
Trustee Cardona.
I want to tell Ruben, when I started as a board member, I used to meet with him every Tuesday to help me to read the board, the agenda. I understand the new policies and the new things. And he just didn't do it to me. He's doing it to every single of the board members that we are here. I've been here for almost 9 years already. Time flies. And I learned so much. I see him as a great leader, great person, wonderful human being, and wish you the best. And we'll see you around, and we follow you up, see what you're doing, and thank you for everything.
Thank you.
I also want to say that I was at the fireworks booth. Yes, it is very hot outside. Go and get your fireworks and tell all your friends to get their fireworks from Bing's Market. The parents, there are some parents out there working really, really hard as well. Let's go out there and support them as well. I am the newbie on the team, but I'm happy to be a part of the team. I am learning so much, and I feel like I'm growing as a human being from being here. And so I thank Ruben and I thank the entire team for just allowing me to be here and to occupy some space here. So thank you and congratulations. And I want to, follow all your Disney travels. So please share. Share.
I can do that.
Can Nicole add that to the Robla updates from his Disney adventures? like his screaming face on the roller coasters when he buys the pictures.
There you go. Mr. Barnes?
I have not volunteered at the fireworks.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
have a-
yeah,
I do have a-
yeah.
yes, but I do have a friend who is volunteer, so I got him to do it. And I will say yes, go get your fireworks. It really does help and makes a difference. And for Ruben, I'm not gonna say much right now because I don't think I can get through a lot. But I will say this: you made being a board member very easy. When I was brand new and had a million questions and a million thoughts, you were there and you listened. And then when I was a bit more seasoned and knew how to temper things, you're still there, listening, offering ideas, suggestions, everything. You made being a board member very easy, and I really appreciate that. And I have a lot more to say. I'll just wait and say it later on.
Thank you.
I too have not volunteered at the fireworks booth, and I'm looking for a reasonably temperate time to go out and volunteer. Anyway, so then there's that. By the way, folks, just so that you know, the reason why you want to buy your fireworks there is, especially if you have children in the district, you want to go there because all of that money goes into the Robla Education Foundation, and that money goes to support programs for the kids. If you have a child in the district, or if you work in the district, if you go and you work a shift, a percentage of the money will go to the school site that you designate. So if you want to give a little bit of your time, and once again, that also goes to help your child's or your school where you're at. So if you get a chance, get on out there and help out. Ruben, one of the things that I wanted to say was, a lot of times it's easy to talk about relationships or work relationships when you agree. A lot of times, and probably the most important time you can tell if a team is a team is when they disagree. When there are times in which some team members want to go right and the rest want to go left, or maybe when the superintendent wants to go left and the board wants to go right. And it was always during those times that you showed your greatest strength, which was, number one, you understood that our job was to influence the district, and it was your job to help us to make that vision, whatever that vision is, come to pass. And you always worked to try and make sure that we understood the pros and cons of any direction that we might choose to go, that you always worked to present options for us. We always had options. I can't think of one time where we didn't have options, and sometimes those options were created on the fly, but there were always options that we had. But you always made sure to make sure that every single board member had their questions and their concerns addressed. We may not always have agreed, but we've always understood, and we were always in agreement, no matter which side of an issue any of us was on. That it was always about the kids, and it was always about making sure that we are providing a quality environment for our children to get a quality education. And you've always made that a priority, and it was real easy with all of the board members to really, I think we all kind of take a step back to the Robla family when it came to serving on this board. And that was how we were able to come together. And you set the example with every interaction. And I just want to thank you for that. And thank you just for everything that you've done for the community of Robla. And this community is not going to be the same without you. But we are very, very happy about the path that you have set us upon, that you've set us on. And we're excited, and we hope to make you proud.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig.
And with that, we're going to move on to the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Move on to presentations and information. Number A, we have facilities updates.
Good evening. First off, before we get into the presentation, just wanted to kind of echo some of the board's words for Ruben. You know, it was back in 2013 where we had a crazy idea of going out for a bond. We put together a plan, and simply put, you know, the district you see today from a facility standpoint is far beyond anything that I think was visioned before 2013. After the first bond in 2014, we were like, oh, you know, like we did a good job. Let's see if we can keep on going. And it really was the leadership and vision of I think the district staff, Ruben leading that staff, and as well as the board to see what could be here in this community. And you know, we were driving up here today, and you know, you make that corner right there, and you see the building. You're like, it's amazing. I mean, it's just, you know, and to look at every single school site and to see substantial changes to the district as a whole, I think is very much speaks towards that type of leadership that we've seen over the last decade and decade plus. And you know, as I will pour into in a few minutes about how we're not done yet, but I think really just seeing that substantial change and having that vision and being able to provide the students and the teachers and staff really places of pride. So I want to thank you for having the faith in us to pull it off, and letting us kind of dream of what this district could be, and allowing us to help you out with that. And so just once again, thank you for all your time here. And on that note, I would encourage people not to use fireworks anywhere near the buildings. Please use your fireworks anywhere but school sites. And with that, do we have a presentation up or? No, oh, no worries. Then you guys won't be able to figure out what I mess up on.
We have a presentation.
Oh, you have it. Okay.
Yeah, it's in there.
Huh.
It is here. Yeah,
All right. We'll figure it out.
we see it.
All right. So speaking of just kind of the continuation of what it is that remains with the facilities as a whole, really, you know, we've gone and we emphasize with both bond programs having the classrooms and the administrative spaces really be the focus of the two programs we've had to date. And really, you know, if you go to all of our campuses, you know, we have 21st century learning environments in every single permanent classroom space, support space, administrative space, and we're trying to identify what are the things that are left over. And we knew that when we started this program that we would never get to a point where we'd be able to get all of it done all at once. And one of the things that has evolved over the time has been the use of our MPRs. You know, for most, with the exception of Maine, the vast majority of or all of the rest of our MPRs are of the vintage and age of when the buildings were originally constructed, the school sites were originally constructed at each of those sites. And we know that there continues to be need, not just for physical education space, but also for gathering spaces and for providing updated meal service. One of the big pushes that I think that the district's had over the last 5 or 6 years is improving the quality of meals that students are getting. And not only that, but given the population that the district serves, the number of meals that have to be generated at each of those sites. Quite frankly, when those MPRs were designed and constructed, they were not designed and constructed with that particular operational usage in mind. Bell Avenue is a great example. For example, that, you know, not only do they service the elementary school site, but also the preschool site. You know, we have preparation of breakfast, we have preparation of lunch, we have an afternoon snack or in some cases supper meals for the after school programs. So really the capacity of those MPRs over time have been greater, have been stressed more and more as these programs evolve. So one of the things that the superintendent had asked us to look at as a parting gift, if you will, was a way for the district to better utilize and better provide meal service to all of its campuses, and also to help with alleviating some of the capacity issues we have at Bell Avenue, because it is our most severely impacted site due to the presence of the preschool as well as the elementary school as a whole. And so, as the board may recall, in our latest plan back in, we had adopted the standards and specifications for the reconstruction of the MPRs at both Bell and at Taylor. Those were the two areas that we had saw as needing the most critical uses and needs with similar improvements being proposed with Robla and Glenwood as needed going forward. Glenwood being our newest school. And so in that plan, the district did adopt specifications for the NPR. However, those improvements still remain to be funded, either from additional local sources or from other sources identified by the district. As I mentioned, the original idea behind the NPRs was to provide this physical education space, gathering space, and meal service. And given the current schedule, the overall usage of those NPRs is primarily food service at this point. We really don't have the time in between lunch periods to disassemble and use those spaces for other types of uses throughout the day. So we went back and we looked at the specification of NPR, and we started to look at what would potentially be our best way to utilize our limited resources we have in A, providing additional benefit to Bell Avenue, and then B, how to provide additional space or food service for the district as a whole. And so what we did is went back and we looked at both the NPR, but also at a cafeteria. And you may ask, what's the main difference between a cafeteria and NPR? Well, it's that physical education component that really drives the NPR. It's the ability to accommodate volleyball or basketball. You have to have higher ceilings. So in a cafeteria, you can have a 9, 10-foot ceiling, and you have to worry about balls bouncing off the ceiling. In NPR, you have to take in that consideration. And so building that extra ceiling up to 22 feet as versus 10 feet is an abundance of cost that goes on along with that. In addition to that, you're looking at the kitchen spaces. If you look at all of our campuses, the NPRs were originally built for the capacity of the sites at the time which they were designed. And so even though some of those sites have grown over time, the kitchens are the same size as they were for the original populations that had those at each of those sites. So we took a look at those two and kind of compared their functionality and costs. Originally, we were looking at building a brand new NPR at Bell Avenue and looking at what the cost would be for similar facilities at the other sites. And that cost came back to approximately $9.5 million per NPR. There we go. Whereas a cafeteria that would service a similar amount of population would be about $5.3 million. So being able to limit the functionality of that particular new building allowed us to bring down the cost of the overall structure. Still had a kitchen, still had a gathering area, still had food. It was just that PE component of it, that physical activity component of it, was removed and allowed us to reduce the cost overall. In addition to that, what I mentioned previously is that there was a desire by the district to also look into building a new central kitchen, a kitchen that would be able to provide the quality and level of meals for the students on an ongoing basis, and to create economies in the food preparation in such a way that it could make the food and then utilize the existing facilities that we have to prepare and serve the food. One of the things we recognize really upfront is we don't have the resources right now to go and build a brand new kitchen at every single site. We do have the ability right now to go to the site to make sure that, okay, under their current functionality, we can prepare the best possible meal at the central kitchen, distribute it out, and then serve it at the sites. And so we thought, okay, that's a good way for us to effectively renew and to improve upon the overall meal service as a whole. So we looked at that particular option as well. And what we came up with was a combination of a new cafeteria and a central kitchen to be constructed at Bell Avenue. I guess I got ahead of myself a little bit here. So just to give the board an idea of what are the types of facilities we're talking about here. The board adopted specification for NPR was approximately 6,000 square feet. It provided 22-foot ceiling, central eating and assembly area, cooking kitchen, and storage spaces. And that's about $9.5 million. For our cafeteria, in contrast, is about 4,000 square feet. We had a 12-foot ceiling height overall, which could accommodate performances, meetings, programs, and some physical activities, but obviously not like a basketball game or what have you. Dodgeball, still good to go. But approximately $5.3 million would be needed to fund a cafeteria of that particular specification as a whole. Overall, we started exploring with the district where we could place a cafeteria, and we're still working on the final placement because there's a couple of considerations we have. First off, we're not in a position today where we can eliminate the existing NPR and kitchen facility at Bell Avenue. It's a critical use element. The board at this point is pretty well versed in the construction timeline and schedule, and the idea of taking the MPR offline for 10, 12, 18 months is not viable. And so what we're recommending is to place that particular new cafeteria elsewhere on campus in the overall circulation area, and to make sure that we're able to place it in such a way that makes sense with the rest of the campus as it's been currently constructed as a whole. Right now, we're thinking about placing it over by the new two-story classroom building with some, to would allow it to have access from the parking lot for after-school assemblies and gatherings and so forth, without having to allow people all the way into the campus in order to operate from those areas. The building itself would consist of about 7,800 square feet, of which about 2,700 square feet would be the general assembly and eating area, with a balance of that serving as the primary kitchen for the district. Cold storage, dry storage, meal prep, cooking, distribution, warming, all of those considerations in mind will be placed on the other end of that particular wall. So this facility from the school side would look like a dining hall, eating cafeteria. On the back side, it would operate more as a central kitchen with distribution coming out for the other campuses as well. One of the challenges we had is, as you know, we've issued all of our bond funds from both Measure H and Measure K. We have been submitting for and been receiving on a periodic basis reimbursements from the state, modernization grants and new construction grants that stem from the completion of those previous projects. And we've been patiently awaiting for the state to process the applications in order to provide us reimbursements for that. What we're proposing, working with the district, is that we've identified a number of those grants that we have applied for, and we're awaiting receipt from the state for. To date, we have received some money back from the Taylor Street project modernization. And if you recall, I think that happened about 5 years ago, just to give you an idea where the state is in terms of our applications and then processing it. There's about another $6 million in reimbursements that we're waiting for, either from the Bell Avenue reimbursement program, the Robla modernization, the Glen modernization, and the Bell Avenue modernization. And so what's being proposed is that over time, those funds will be made available in order to fund the project as a whole, in addition to the developer fee, balance of developer fees that are currently in the budget. In order to commence with design and construction, and talking with the district CBO, what is being proposed at this time is that there would be a loan from the general fund to this particular project, and the general fund would be reimbursed from these sources of funds as they're received over time. And so right now it's projected that the overall cost of the cafeteria / central kitchen would be approximately $8.9 million. A portion of that has already been received. That's the $2.6 million for Taylor Street. Those hit the coffers, I believe, about 30 days ago, of which about $2 million remains unencumbered. So about $600,000 have been used to reimburse the district for costs incurred by the bond program, and it is recommended that the balance of that, about $2 million, be allocated towards design and construction of the cafeteria and the central kitchen. The balance would be about $7 million, which would be provided by the district's general fund. And like I said, the plan would be to reimburse the general fund over time as those other funds are received overall. Let me stop there for a moment and answer any questions the board may have regarding scope, project, schedule, and funding. Yes.
I have a question for understanding. To make sure that I'm like getting this. So we want to redo the cafeteria at Bell. So we're going to move the kitchen to another site, and then that space would be used for something else.
Good question. So what we're proposing is to build a brand new kitchen and cafeteria complex on the Bell Avenue site. And that facility would prepare all the meals for service to all the sites in the district, and B, would serve as the cafeteria for all the Bell students both at the elementary and at the preschool. So from Bell Avenue's standpoint, they have a cafeteria in which they're being served food. And then from the district standpoint, that same facility will be producing all the food that is served at all the other sites as well. So the kitchen that's currently in the Bell MPR would probably be ceased to be used as the cafeteria would replace that function, but the MPR at that site would remain until either it's replaced or if there's another use for that particular building has some of the issues. There's been some improvements made over time. It's pretty old and outdated, but what we're proposing here is really to replace the primary function that the NPR has right now, which is serving meals.
And then you're saying that the space would not be able to be used for PE type.
It would not be able to use for, we use the word intramurals. So I know, for instance, we have the intramural basketball tournament. We have some of these other activities. So it would not have sufficient height to accommodate volleyball, for instance, or basketball. We're not talking about building a structure that would be similar to anything like at Maine, for instance. Like Maine Avenue has this huge, ceilings and complexes. This particular building won't have that capacity. But with that said, the NPR that's currently sitting on that site would be freed up for those physical activities.
And I guess I would just clarify, generally the facility that we're talking about building would suffice for the kinds of activities that mostly happen at the school. And the intramural kinds of activities that are being mentioned are generally things that are district-wide. So we just have them at the space where we can best have them. So we have the soccer tournament at the school with the best soccer field. We have the basketball tournament at the school with the space to do that, which is Main Avenue. And we have started volleyball this year, and that's also at Main Avenue. So, we feel like we're meeting that need elsewhere. But assemblies and things could still happen in this space if we wanted to do that.
I have a question. For the kitchen area, is that going to be set up more like, or is it designed more to be like a manufacturing center? Or is it possible for it to be like a learning kitchen also?
It's something we have to research. I mean, one that you run into is public health. So the central kitchen will be certified by public health. And so it's going to be more of a question of administratively, how would you accommodate that learning? Are you going to scrub down? The kids are going to scrub down, or do they have hair nuts? Do they have, Trustee Cordona could probably talk a little better about food service and so forth, but it's something that maybe we talk about, is there ways in which students are able to interact, like if like a large manufacturing area where you potentially have like a glass window and they can see the food production. But whether or not the kids can participate in the food production is not something that we've discussed.
If I could just jump in here, the board is aware that we currently work with a company called Brigade, which is a national company that we have a contract with over the next 2-3 years, and that has brought us our chef. So we have our professional chef that works with us now, Chef Sergio, and they have already given us some input around designing a central kitchen that would best serve our needs in terms of how many students we have, the condition of the other kitchens, as well as the goals that we have for serving the types of meals. So they provided us some information that we had passed on to CFW, and they use that information to help inform, the planning that they're doing. And we would foresee Ms. Divine Brigade, who has expertise in this area, continuing to give us some advice and some input as we design this space to make sure that it is built in a way that really facilitates the goals that we're setting for what we want to do with our meals and with our students in the district.
Right.
So it's, and basically that means more scratch cooking and more locally sourced food.
Right. But for this price, what I'm saying is, I would like to see something that the kids can stuff like that, like a learning.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I know there's a lot of regulations about safety, so I don't even know. I would say, I don't know if that's even possible considering what the regulations are. But again, I'm trying to reassure you that we have a lot of expertise who could help to inform us about what this needs to be.
Okay, thank you.
So the amount, where's it at? The 8.9,
sir,
8.9 million. So that's for that. It says here that those are the amount of funds that are available. Is that what the cost of the new facility will pretty much will be?
Yes. So what we did is we went back and we looked at the cost of the MPR, or sorry, the cafeteria and central kitchen, and we went back and we said, okay, what are the funds that would be available from us over time? And we tried to design to that budget.
Mm-hmm.
So it may look a little suspicious that the money available in the future is the money that is the cost of the building. Remember that when we design buildings, we always try to design a budget. So what we did is we actually did this backwards. We identified all the dollars that we think would be available to go build this thing. And then we try to design it in such a way that we were able to do it with the funds that we identified. So there was another version of this where it was 2 separate buildings.
Mm-hmm.
It cost more than the money that we could find. There was a version of this where we built a full MPR and a central kitchen. Once again, that budget exceeded anything, any source of funding that we could find.
We even looked at, could we build it, is there another school we could build it at? We looked at Taylor Street as an example.
Yeah, and we looked at other sites as well. And so really, we spent the last few months trying to figure out, given the source of money that we know that we can anticipate coming back from the state, what could we go build? And that's the way we approach it, as opposed to, let's go figure out, what we can go build and figure out what the money is. We actually, as always, kind of did it the other way around. We identified the source.
Which is a smart way to do it, by the way.
Limited resources, absolutely.
Yes. Now, I also know that we dealt with a number of infrastructure issues during our construction time there at Bell Avenue. How confident are we that we're not going to find some sort of a surprise thing that's going to,
So unfortunately, what I'll tell you is that where this is currently located is not an area that we've excavated previously.
Okay.
So, remember, whenever we
That's good or bad.
Well, that's the thing, right? So, like, for instance, we like to say that we know, from the rest of the campus improvements where things lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sewer, power, and so forth. And we have a good idea of where those utilities are. And, I think when we're looking at the site as a whole, the reason why we sited it close to the new 2-story classroom building is there's the electrical vaults are right there. And we already know where the sewer tie-ins are. We know where the water is. That said, we crack open that asphalt and, underneath that blacktop, there could be something that, wasn't present somewhere else on the site. So we do build an allowance into the budget to deal with those unforeseen conditions. We will have the regular slew of folks, the surveyors, the testing inspectors, DTSC, and things of that nature that will examine the site where we are proposing to put the building and hopefully give us some more insight into that. But can I tell you right now that we're aware of everything that's underneath that particular footprint? I can't. But what I will tell you is that given the amount of work we've done on that site, I think we have a pretty good idea of where things are. Doesn't mean that won't be surprises. If you recall, over here at Robla, we found 4 or 5 underground vaults. And for a while we couldn't figure out what they were for, what they did, but we had a backhoe that all of a sudden found a cavity, and there was stuff there. So we have old sites, we have old infrastructure and what have you. I think that we are trying to minimize the amount of new infrastructure that we're bringing onto these and trying to use what we have on those sites. And that's another reason why we're looking at Bell as well. Is we've done a lot of work there, right? We worked on the storm drains, we worked on a lot of those other issues there, and I think hopefully that we're able to do it most cost effectively in that location near these new utilities.
Now, do you project that this will allow us to then, when we do have resources at the other sites, to be able to do something a little bit different with a little bit smaller kitchen?
Yes, so that's a great point. So as we look at exploring improvements at the other school sites and building either MPRs or cafeterias or new facilities, if you will, it will allow you to go from a full cooking kitchen, which is currently the standard at each of our sites, to either a warming or a preparation kitchen. So the footprint and costs associated with so instead of having to build a brand new kitchen, a fully functional cooking kitchen at each of the new buildings as we go forward, you will be able to scale back on the overall scope and cost of those as we look at those improvements in the future.
How many employees would the larger kitchen be able to accommodate? Because if we're going to reduce the size of the on-site campuses to just reducing, then we would need less cafeteria workers, but would they be able to be accommodated in the bigger?
I think it's really important for me to jump in here and say these are all things that we will have to negotiate with CSEA. So in terms of any changes in job descriptions, any changes in responsibilities, any changes in sites, those kinds of discussions are, if the board were to approve these actions tonight and we're going to move forward with this plan, then we know we have the information we need to begin those discussions. So We know those kinds of things need to happen. We just haven't started talking about them yet.
I just want to make sure that it will
Yeah.
be able to accommodate everybody we
Yeah.
already have on staff. So
Yeah, and I assure you that those are the discussions we will be having with CSCA.
thank you.
Now, is this the money that we're looking at here? Is this all the potential funds that we're looking at possibly getting back in terms of reimbursements, or are there others? Just, I only say that because obviously, there's always times in which you're going to need to deal with maintenance and roofing and things that are of a little bit more significant nature than just basic deferred maintenance. Sure. It's always good to have a little bit in the kitty for that. Are we anticipating, at least from some other sources, or are we anticipating that we'll still have enough to be able to do stuff like that?
So I think the ultimate answer to that would come from Gerardo in terms of what are the other sources of funding available for those types of projects.
Okay.
What I will say on the facility side is that it was always the intent of the plan that the reimbursements that were received from these construction projects would be fed back into the program for additional improvements. Okay. So this money was always earmarked for additional improvements, whether it was going to be a new NPR at Bell, whether it's going to be a central kitchen, whether it's going to be additional field, whatever it was going to be, it was going to go back into the overall program. So I think the only caveat here, or the difference here, is that this would require the district to upfront some of that money. Or the majority of the money would have to be upfronted from the district's general fund to be reimbursed over time, as opposed to waiting for each of those reimbursements to come back, cobbled together and then go forward. It may take another 2 or 3 years until all that money comes back from the state, given its current pace. And some of that is still dependent on a statewide bond being passed by voters, hopefully in the fall of November or 2024. So those are dependent things, and those are things that we've discussed with the district, saying, okay, this is what we're anticipating to come through the pipe. If it doesn't come through, what is the plan A, B, C, D, and E? And that's something we've been trying to work with the district through, saying, okay, what happens in those particular cases? So in terms of the other funds outside of this, for maintenance and so forth, that's something that the district had to provide some background on for those other types of projects as well.
So what percentage of this 8.9 do we know we're 80% confident are going to be coming, and then how much of it is we're not quite sure when?
So I would tell you that about $3 million of it has already been allocated back to the district, or about $3.5 million. 2.6, which was the reimbursement for the Taylor modernization work. And then in our latest TK pre-K application for Bell Avenue, not only is it funding the 4 classrooms that are to be constructed, but it's also reimbursing the district $1 million for the 2 kindergarten classrooms it built as part of its 3 kindergarten classroom complex over when we did the new construction. So that money will be allocated to the district the moment that the preschool TK project gets CDE and DSA approval. So that $1 million will come back. The $2.6 million has already been received by the district. As I mentioned, about $600,000 of that went back to reimburse the district for other construction costs that it had already incurred. So about $3 million, about a third of those funds are pretty safely acquired. Okay. The remaining, and then about 700. Go over here. About $750,000, $750,000 is from the district's developer fee fund. So that's money that's already sitting in the coffers. The balance of that, we know that we are eligible for. So the Robla, Glenwood, and Bella Avenue modernization dollars, we know we're eligible for. We've submitted all the applications and paperwork. It's a matter of the state processing that over time. And these are all reflective of the grant amounts as they are today. One of the things that is a little bit to our benefit is as the state takes its time to process this, every year they adjust the grant amounts for inflation. And so these are the initial values as of today. If they reimburse us after January 1 of next year, these dollar amounts will go up. 2 years out will go up, so forth as well. So we're fairly confident that we will receive the balance of the funds because we're eligible for those. The projects have been completed. OPSC has signed off on it. DSA has signed off on it. It's just a matter of processing. Now, the big caveat is if the voters do not approve a new statewide bond for modernization new construction grants, because remember, the current program is being funded from the state's general fund. There were surpluses. The governor set aside dollars from the general fund because the existing bond authorization had been expended. And so if he continues to do that, and we continue to see surpluses where he's allowed to do that, this may accelerate. But ultimately, it's only going to be a voter approved bond initiative that's going to guarantee that those dollars are available for these programs going forward. So, long answer to your question, but it's about $4.5 million that is out there waiting for the state to make a move. And the balance of that, we either have dollars on hand, or we are very, very confident that those dollars will come into the coffers.
Okay, so I have a quick question, and hopefully I didn't miss you saying this. So to rebuild the NPR with the big cafeteria is 9.5 million for one. But for 5.3 million, we could upgrade the current ones?
No, so thank you. I appreciate you making a distinction. So there are two models. One is you build a cafeteria. It's about $5.3 million. Okay. And that gives you a eating space, a gathering space, and a cooking kitchen. Okay. So it would model what you currently have in terms of a
For all sites? Because
per site.
that's
Per site.
per site,
Per
because
site.
it says cafeterias, so I
Sorry.
couldn't tell.
Yeah. So per site. So $5.3 million per site. Okay. So if we were to do the 4 remaining sites, so if we take Maine out for a minute, you're talking about $21 million in order to construct 4 new cafeterias. If you were to construct NPRs, which would be that $9 million number, you're now talking about $36 million to provide that for those 4 sites. So what this particular proposed project does is trying to give a new eating space for a severely impacted site, which is Bell Avenue, and also to provide the district with the capability of doing its scratch cooking and meal preparation, and be able to provide that for all students throughout the district.
Thank you.
The other thing, if I could just add one more thing, and that is the reason we landed on Bell Avenue, because the need is, present really at all 4 of those other sites, is because Bell Avenue is also the place where our preschool eats meals. So we thought, that seemed like a reason to prioritize it, because not only would we be facilitating the meals for students at Bell Avenue, but we would be hoping to facilitate the meals for the preschoolers as well.
Okay.
Think we're ready to go on?
We can move on. So the second project that we want to bring forth to the board as well is, as I mentioned, we had received a grant from the Office of Public School Construction for the construction of 4 classrooms on our preschool site, 2 transitional kindergarten classrooms and 2 preschool classrooms. It's the board had approved that project early in the year. We're in design. We've gone through the different levels of submitting to. We're in process of submitting to DSA for those. But one of the things that the district had brought to our attention was that while we're doing these improvements, one of the things that was needed was a permanent administrative space for the preschool campus, and to be able to hopefully provide that in conjunction with the project that we are currently moving forward with. What's very important to understand is that the funding that's provided by the state is very precise. We can only build classroom spaces with the money we have, and the money they give us just barely covers the costs of those facilities. So it wasn't something that we're going to be able to fund from the grant, that additional space. So once again, we went back and as we always do, we tried to define a specification. What is it that would be necessary for the preschool administration at that site? And what we came up with was approximately 960 square feet of administrative space that would provide a reception area, workstations, a nurse's office, a director's office, a coordinator's office, a teacher workroom, and a restroom to provide those facilities on a permanent basis for the preschool. As you may recall, the vast majority, if not all of our facilities at the preschool are in aging portables. The district has gone through a number of times to renovate them, improve them, fix them, in some cases replace them. And so really what we're doing here is using the funds available from the state, coupled with some additional funds to go back and make sure that we have a permanent home for our preschoolers and the administrative team that will be sited there as well. The district asked us to go back and explore this option, And basically, what's being proposed here is that we would take our 4 classroom building and we'd add an additional 960 square feet to the end of it, creating that administrative office. Overall, we believe that would increase the cost of the project by approximately $761,000 in order to put that onto the end of our building and to accommodate that additional space. The effect of adding this would be that any work that is contracted out, whether it be on the modular side or the site work or so forth, we would amend the scope in order to accommodate that additional work on there as well. Once again, we looked at the possibility of, do we just drop another building away from it? Do we do something else? But once again, we figured out that the most efficient way for us to accommodate this particular building was to include in the overall scope and timeline of our development as we're building these other classrooms over there as well.
$750,000 for 900 square feet.
960 square feet.
960.
I'm literally thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is Sacramento. We don't even pay that for a new build.
It's getting there. So just as a comparative, each of our kindergarten classrooms that we've been building, it's about $1.2 million per classroom. So that's just to give you a comparative number. And so we were very fortunate when we started the program here in Robla, where we were in costs. Even if you look at all we were able to build, I mean, we would not be able to build Robla Elementary today for what we built it for. And so we've seen the escalation in costs, but also just what the demands are of our buildings. One of the things that we talked about when we had brought the kindergarten or TK pre-K project to the board originally was that one of the things that we were racing against time on was getting DSA approval prior to July 1st. And the reason for that is on July 1st for modular buildings, a new requirement kicks in. And that requirement is that you have to not only install photovoltaic, but you also have to install battery storage. And the grants that were provided to the district do not allow for the costs associated with those two items. Going forward, all new buildings are going to have photovoltaic.
What is that?
Solar panels.
Okay.
Solar panels and battery storage.
Okay.
So, for instance, if our next round of applications for Main Avenue gets approved for additional TK and preschool facilities, we are going to have to find a way for us to accommodate the costs of those additional systems in that, because so far the state has not increased the grant, even though it has placed more requirements on you. It has not increased the grant to offset that requirement. So overall, I think just in terms of considerations for the board and overall recommendations, it's important to understand that the sources of funding have not yet been fully secured by the district. And that's the question that Mr. DeLuce had mentioned. And I said, hey, we have about a third of it. We can definitely say, we're very, very certain it'll come in. The other stuff we qualify for, but it's going to depend on the state providing those funds over time. The other thing that's important to understand is that when we submit the application and when it's reviewed, there's one major metric that the state looks at, and that's your enrollment. So if you have a enrollment today of 2,000 students and your enrollment declines to, say, 1,500 students between the time you applied and the time they review your project, they always take your enrollment at the time of review. So if the district experiences a significant drop in enrollment between now and when the state reviews those applications that are still pending, there can be a decline in the amount of grants that are provided. The good news is that those grants are dependent on not your district-wide enrollment, but your site. So it's very important, as we get closer to that review period, that the enrollment at those sites remain stable. So there's some flexibility the district has regarding the enrollment numbers at that time, but it's important to understand that overall, if the enrollment declines to a significant amount, those dollars that are still pending may be decreased, or in some cases, if you have a catastrophic decline in enrollment, those grants may not be made available. As I mentioned before, those funds are contingent on the state general fund monies or voter-approved bonds measures. And then, just as always, some of the disclaimers of, the estimated costs are subject to change if we find something crazy out there at either site. We will go through the design process and continue to design to those budgets. And as always been the practice, we would be coming back to the board to approve the costs of construction, consultants, and so forth as we go through that process as well. So as has been our previous practice, we would continue to bring those items to the board for your consideration and approval. And as I mentioned before, it's at this time in order to proceed with that project, it is recommended the district lend $7 million and provide approximately $2 million from the grants already received in order to proceed with design construction of the proposed central kitchen and cafeteria at the Bell campus. And then separately also to authorize to proceed with design and construction of the new preschool administration building as well. And those items are for the board's consideration later on this evening.
Any questions or comments? I had one question, and I know it's not something you can probably answer right now, but something to look into. After looking at what occurred during the school shooting in Tennessee, if you notice that if you watch it, the shooter actually went through. Basically, they had the doors locked and shot through the glass doors that were there. And I'm wondering what it would cost for us to have at all of our sites, at least for the windows and the doors that are available off the street, what it would cost us to replace those with ballistic glass.
I mean, we're trying to look at it. I mean, I think we're going to find failure points, if not in the glass and the door, and not the door, the hardware, if not the.
If anything can discourage or slow them down, I mean, for me, I just like to get an idea what the cost would be.
Yeah.
Just a ballpark would be nice.
Okay.
All right.
On you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have a New Hope Charter School update.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you all. It's always an honor to come before you all, and thank you for allowing me to give you an update to our new trustee. I'm Harendra Pagani. I'm the executive director for New Hope, and it's my honor to serve as the executive director and also to serve in this particular district with folks like Superintendent Reyes. I'm going to start with, you may have heard that we had our first promotion, 8th grade promotion, and I believe it's been a few decades since we've had an 8th grade promotion in Robla School District. So we had 122 8th grade scholars who were promoted on to 9th grade.
Many?
122. And so one thing that's for sure, I don't know if parents will turn out for the fireworks, but I do know they turn out for promotion ceremonies. District, for sure.
Hopefully they're not shooting off fireworks at the promotion ceremony.
Yes. But what was amazing was that just the level, and I'll start there and then I'll get into more of the nuts and bolts of the presentation, but just the level of work that the staff, the students, and our families put in to do something of that level. We had, as I said, 122 of our scholars, all of our staff there, but we also put out 400 additional chairs. And we had all those chairs, they were filled, and we still had people on the fringes around the 2 tents that we had set up. So it was a pretty powerful event, and just want to thank Trustee Cardona, who was able to come see us. And of course, our keynote speaker was Superintendent Reyes. inspired our scholars. So thank you. And that was very appropriate, of course, because Superintendent Reyes is the one that I first spoke with in this district about having this type of program for our scholars and offering our families an opportunity to continue their education in the district. So thank you, Mr. Reyes, for not only all your support over the years, but also doing the honor of being our keynote speaker. So how did we get there is really what I'm going to focus on tonight, because it wasn't just a ceremony. It was a lot of work that went into getting us to that point, all 122 of these scholars and the seventh graders that are coming up behind them now. There has to be some intentionality behind that. And so a way to capture that and also share our LCAP, our local control and accountability plan, I think it gives us a little bit of context for that. So I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but I just want to highlight some things that really allowed us to have that type of celebratory event. So I'm going to share more so on the LCAP side, not so much the local indicators. You all should have a copy of this presentation, so you all will be able to see, dig deeper. So as you all know, this the LCAP is a 3-year plan that talks about our school goals, our actions that lead to those goals, achieving those goals, what services, as well as what's the budget. You know, how are we going to support the positive student outcomes that we're talking about? How do we prepare our students for college prep high schools, for college, for life? And this is what we're focusing on. I also want to just let you know that the LCAP is, as you all know, is required by the state of California, but the New Hope Board earlier this week when they met, they approved this LCAP, and now I'm presenting it to you all as well. And you don't have to vote on it. It's not an action item. Just want to be clear, just to share it with you all. So it's just a great opportunity, a great way to share our stories. And again, how did we get to that point where we were able to have that promotion? So let's keep going. So again, we focus on these 8 state priorities. The categories are conditions of learning, student outcomes, and engagement. And then, so I'm going to jump through some of these, and this is just basically our timeline. This is how we got there in terms of this whole plan that we put together. And again, this is not something that was done in isolation. Initially, what I started doing was I just really studied what Robla School District's LCAP, what goals you all had in there. And so you have 4 goals. I believe you still have 4 goals. And all the different actions and how you got where you are with your district. So I started with that, but then started engaging parents, started engaging staff. So this is our 3rd year of this process. So we engaged our stakeholders again this year, beginning and really more so, really heavily in like January, February time. And then that's what allowed us to really put that input into our plan going forward. So we went through, and as I said, we finalized and adopted the LCAP. But now it's not something that just sits on a shelf or just on my hard drive or in our Google Drive. It's something that we continue to review and continue to revise to help us build the best possible program for students. So just 3 goals: academic performance or student achievement, school climate, and parent involvement. So I'm going to touch on some of the highlights for each of these goals. So the first goal is really, this is about student achievement, right? So in English, math, science, history, as well as physical education even. So we really have continued to focus on those academic areas, but we also, in talking to our staff and our students and our other staff member, or sorry, our stakeholders, have added in a couple of things that we wanted to make sure are included in our goals going forward. So things like just facilities, as Mr. Flores was talking about. Facilities need to be in good repair. And this is something that's not so much in the LCAP, but in our SARC, our School Accountability Report Card. The other thing is just to focus all the way, that last bullet point, on access. So that's a big focus for us. Equity. And how do we get equity? It's through access and inclusion. So if you look a little deeper at who our students are, how do they gain access to these subjects? How do they gain access to the learning that we want to achieve with them and that they want to achieve. Because our students are really very diverse. We have about 20 languages spoken on our campus. We also have 22% of our students, 22.2% to be exact, are students with learning disabilities or have an individualized education program. About 35% of our students are English learners, foster youth we have, and we also have about 90% of our students come from families who qualify for free and reduced price meals. So it's a lot of diversity there amongst our students and our families, but that's a strength for us. That's not an obstacle. That's actually something that's very powerful for us. So we have to work very thoughtfully and very collaboratively and cohesively to really build a program that's going to help us help all students achieve their academic goals. So again, that access piece is very important. One thing that we did for the first time this year that we didn't do last year was we had the 8th grade California Science Test. And so we're waiting the results, of course, of our state assessments. So hopefully early next year, as the school year begins, we'll be able to share those results. And then also our English learners continue to progress. Last year, we reclassified 8 of our English learner students. This year, we have 15 students who are eligible to be reclassified. So we're very proud of the work, the academic work that's happening. Goal 2, school climate.
How many students do you have classified?
As English learners,
Yes.
we have 47.
Okay, and so that's over the last 2 years you've had 47, or you have 47 left?
We have 47 total between 7th and 8th grade, and 15 of them are going to be reclassified or eligible to be reclassified.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, so let me jump ahead to goal 2. Again, this is school climate, and you have to have the conditions where students are not only doing the work academically, but you have to build a supportive environment. You have to build the love, the respect that students need to really excel, and for them to invest in their learning as well. So 2 things that I want to highlight that we're going to continue to build on. One is this multi-tiered systems of support. This should not be anything new. I know you all have heard this because Robla School District does these types of practices. But for us, it's a whole new school. We have to build all these systems. So we started doing the multi-tiered systems of support or system of support, MTSS, and we're going to continue to build on that. That's been a good piece for us in terms of assessing students. Sometimes students are not grasping a concept, or they didn't reach a mastery level on the standard that was taught. Well, we look at our assessments on a regular basis, and then we come up with interventions, and we make sure we engage our families and provide professional development for our teachers to support them in that process to make sure every student is progressing. And then we also have, not only the academic, talked a lot about that, but then there's the positive behavioral interventions and supports, the PBIS program that you all are very familiar with. And this has been such a great opportunity for us as well to just teach students not only just academic skills, but life skills. And so we're going to continue to build those 2 systems out, the MTSS and the PBIS system, as we achieve it or strive to achieve our goal. And again, we only have 3 goals. Our goal isn't, or we don't want to do a million things. We want to do a few things and do them really well. And so here's our 3rd goal, is parent involvement. So we want to continue to increase parent, family, and community involvement in the education of all of our students. And that's such an important thing, even if it's just around whatever their communication needs might be. We have a platform that we use called Talking Points, and parents can choose whatever language they want to receive a text message from us. And that's one way of doing it. The other is just consistently connecting with families. So one thing that we do every morning is when students are dropped off at our school, myself, one of our staff members, we're out there, we're greeting every student every morning. And our goal in terms of connection with our families initially is just to learn every student's name, learn every parent's name, and just to connect with them, to let them know that we are, and all in this as a family. And then a couple other things I wanted to also just highlight from this is that, toward just doing more in terms of workshops and seminars. This is what our parents gave us feedback on. just parents. I've never met a parent that didn't want the very best for their child, but sometimes they don't know how to help their child. So more workshops around how parents can better support their scholars. One thing that's also been an interesting and not so fun, but interesting experience is just teaching middle school scholars how do you safely use technology and social media at home. So those have been some interesting conversations with our students, but also with our parents, because a lot of times, pretty much every student comes to our school, they have a cell phone. And that's a powerful tool, but they don't always know how to use that power. So part of our parenting workshops this year that parents ask for is really just working through things like, how do I better equip my student to use the tools that we're providing them? So, and then just things like regular communication and just creating family-friendly events. So that's our third goal. So student achievement, school climate, and parent involvement. That's it. Just keeping it very simple playbook, and just trying to build this school through those three lenses. So I'll pause there and take any questions.
Questions?
No.
I'll tell you, I really like the idea of what you were talking about in terms of helping to provide some tools or resources. I was talking with Daryl Roberts Family Development Center about the idea of like a parents' academy to help empower parents, to help them to help their kids. Because like you said, sometimes they want to help, they just
don't know how.
They just don't know how. They don't know the things that they can do. Not just some of the academic supports, but how to read. How to read a report card. How to read the standardized test scores. How to advocate both, whether it's with their teacher, whether it's with the principal, or even at the district level. Stuff like that can be huge for empowering parents, because if you empower the parents, you'll empower the kids. I'm glad to see that that's something that you're incorporating.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's easy for us to forget when students move into 7th, 8th grade that it's so important, just as we do at the elementary level, to keep parents engaged. And we also have to remember that parents are their child's first teacher. They'll always be their most important teacher. And if we don't teach our parents how to teach, then we're missing an opportunity.
Right. They simply delegate. What we do, they delegate to us. No, you're 100% correct. And I really appreciate, you can tell, I mean, just your entire time you've been with us, you've made it a point to integrate, and what's the word I'm looking for? Really make sure that we're one. And I think that's one of the reasons why our students feel so comfortable, why our families feel comfortable attending New Hope, is because you pretty much, continue the work that we've been doing in the we'll call it the Robla way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. All right.
I have a question. You mentioned that 100% or 90% of the students are getting free and reduced meals. You also mentioned that everyone has a phone. Well, phones are essential, so people are going to figure out how to get a phone.
Right.
Are there any observations on other needs that students have that are either being unmet or being met? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. And the great point, Trustee Barnes. It's interesting that that's such a the phone can be such a powerful thing for safety. We talked about safety in the previous presentation. A lot of our students walk home. They walk to and from school, and parents just want to have that security that my child is safe, and they can call them. Of course, we say before or after school, not during school. Sometimes parents like to text during the day. And so, but I think the other things that are important for students in terms of resources that we're seeing, or some things we're not seeing, one is just like in terms of, just them having technology at home. So we've been issuing the Chromebooks still beyond COVID. We continue to do that. The other thing is just literacy. We surveyed our families. This was actually a couple of years ago, and we tried to get an idea of like access. I was talking about access earlier to like literature or libraries, things like that. And a lot of times kids don't have that access, or they don't get the opportunity to go to places like libraries. So providing them with technology, even though there may not be a building for them to go to, helps really mitigate that. lack of access. So those would be, I think a couple of things that our folks have really shown. The last one I'll add is just healthy food options. That's a big issue because we have a supermarket not too far down the road from us, and that's kind of the hub. If you want to connect with families outside of school, you go there. But a lot of times students aren't making the best healthy food choices. So programs like we have in Robla for nutrition and so forth are really important, and we're grateful that we're able to partner with our district to provide better options in terms of nutrition. So those are a couple of things.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nothing.
Mr. Pagani, just before you sit down, do you happen to know off the top of your head how we're doing with recruitment for 7th grade?
Yes, I do. We are approaching 100 students for 7th grade. And so our goal is 130. So we are going to be at the fireworks booth, Mr. Lopez. Our New Hope staff will be there helping out and passing flyers out to families. So, but it seems to be going quite well. And we're continuing to make a big push in the summer as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item C, state and federal programs update.
Okay, I had an epiphany as I was sitting there that this is called state and federal programs update, but our state programs are now really rolled into our California local control funding formula. So this is really a federal programs update. Our state categoricals are now part of the local control funding formula. I'll have to change my title going forward. All right, so what is federal funding? Federal funding is money that we receive from the federal government that support the academic growth of students either living in poverty or English is their second language. It's received on a per pupil basis, so it's very contingent on what our enrollment is and what our percentage of free and reduced price meal student counts are. It comes in the form of titles. So you'll hear me, I'm going to share with you the 4 different title programs that we receive. And then each title fund has a specific purpose that it's intended for. So what I'm going to share with you is a little bit about what these funds are for. And really the purpose of all these federal funding is that it's money on top of our normal funding. So it's our supplemental funding to provide additional services. So for example, we cannot use these funds to provide services that we would normally fund through the local control funding formula. There we go. So as I said, we have about 4 different title programs that we receive funds for. I'm going to share with you on this slide what those title programs are, what their intent is, and then what our projected funding going forward for next year is. And I say projected funding because, again, as I said, it's per pupil amount, it's based on our enrollment, and it's based on our free and reduced price meal student counts. We don't actually get our final allocation until December. So we generally about this time of year, the state will kind of give us an idea of what they think our funding is going to be going forward. But honestly, in the last couple of years, that's been really late or non-existing, and we just find out when we find out. So we sometimes get an allocation that is what we call our initial allocation, what we can plan off of. We generally will decrease that a little bit so that we're not planning over our funding amount, and then in December we'll get our actual funding amount. These funds can actually even change after that December date. And each fund has a different amount of time period in which it is to be spent. But the intent is that you receive the dollars on your current enrollment. So the funds should be spent within the year that those students are with you. So they should be spent within the year that you receive those funds. So most of these funds do have a 15-month spending period. Title I is for supporting socially economic disadvantaged students. This is our largest federal funding source that we received. That being said, we used to receive over $1 million in this fund. And it changes what the Department of Ed gives to states towards Title I, and then again it changes according to our enrollment and our student free reduced count. So we have seen a drop from about a year ago of over $100,000 in this fund, and as I said, this used to be over $1 million fund. Now it's under, we're projecting it to be under $700,000. Title IV is a relatively new fund that went away for a while but came back. Title IV is a pot of money that is for 3 specific purposes. It's for well-rounded educational activities, safe and healthy students, and effective use of technology. This fund has requirements in terms of at least 20% of the funds must be spent on well-rounded education activities, and at least 20% spent on safe and healthy students, and no more than 15% on effective use of technology. Title II funds are for improving teacher quality and professional development. This also includes not just teacher quality, but the administrators as well. This fund has been going up a little bit over the years. And then we have Title III, which are support supplemental services for our English learner students. This fund as well has gone up over the years, so it's kind of interesting. Though our Title III, our English learner student count hasn't really gone up. It stayed pretty steady. The amount that we're receiving per student has gone up. And then Title III immigrant funds. This is a type of funding that we receive dependent on if we have students who have been enrolled in a California school less than 3 years. So they may have been in one school somewhere, left, and then come back. But if it's been more than 3 years, we don't receive funding for these students. We receive this funding for the first 3 years that they're in a California school. It's a very small, as you can see, amount of funding that we generally receive from this program. We actually didn't receive it for a couple of years because the formula that is used is they need to see that your immigrant count is actually going up, which ours did this past year. So the prior year we didn't have immigrant funding because that formula, we had like just one increase in immigrant students, but we've had quite a bit of an increase this year, and I see that happening going forward into next year because we had a number of students enroll this year, which will be in the count for the funding for next year. So now I'm going to share with you a little bit about how do we use these funds to supplement the learning. It's not liking me. That's a trick. All right. Okay. How do we use our Title I funds? The majority of the funds are distributed out to the school sites for the school sites to determine how they want to use those funds. And that, as you'll see, is what you found in your school plans for student achievement, which are later on the docket for approval for their plan for spending these funds for next school year. So the Title I funds, the majority of them you will see in the school plans. These funds can be used for after-school tutoring, after-school enrichment programs. For example, they recently had a after-school play program that they had a college student came in and for a couple of months led the students through learning roles in a play and songs. It was a musical, and then they had a performance. So these funds help support the cost of that program. School sites will use these funds for some professional development activities. Most recently, you notice in the school plans the GLAD, or Guided Language Acquisition and Development. The funds towards that type of instructional practice, which is very, very friendly for our English learner population. And then with contracts with the Sacramento County Office of Education, currently 2 of our districts are working on writing. And in the past, they've worked on language arts as well with the county office. We use these funds to help fund our homeless bilingual liaison. She's multi-funded, so some of the funds come from Title I, and then some are from the homeless McKinney-Vento grants. But this helps us to provide a liaison that is Spanish-speaking for that population that needs that service. We also use the fund for parent involvement activities. It's actually a requirement of these Title I funds that you do set aside a percentage of your funding for parent involvement activities, and so we use some of that at the site and district level. It also funds 0.6 of our technology teachers in order to release the classroom teachers to have their professional learning communities. The technology teacher is that release teacher, and it's only 0.6 of that because that's what that portion of their day is, or their week is for. It also helps to fund 0.5% of 5 intervention assistants. So these are intervention assistants that work with the intervention teacher at each of the school sites. It supports half of their full-time salary. How do we use Title II funds? So historically, we were using our Title II funds mainly to support the position of the Director of Curriculum and Assessment. There's been some new changes and reevaluation by the Department of Ed, talking down to the California Department of Education in regards to how they want to see these funds used. They want to see these funds more for direct services to the teachers, administrators, and directly affecting the professional learning for new teachers, for current teachers, and for our current administrators to become effective in leading, and our teachers to be effective in with their instructional practices. So we've done some shifting around, and much of this funding is going to go towards our professional learning activities like the Teacher Curriculum Institute, where about 17 to 20 teachers get together for a week after school gets out. They look at our curriculum for the upcoming school year. They look at mapping out the school year. They look at, for example, the math curriculum, look at the math standards. What pieces do we need to pull out? What pieces do we need to make sure are in there so that we're using our instructional time most effectively? And then the BITSA is our beginning teacher support and assessment program. And that's a 2-year program that teachers, when they first receive their teaching credential, for 2 years, they have a mentor teacher or master teacher that they work with. And the funds help to support the different activities that go with that program. Any questions so far about these two funds? Okay. All right, Title III are our English learner funds that we receive. One of the things that we do with these funds is that we extend our library hours for an additional 3 hours beyond the school day. So it supports that library person to be available for families to come in to potentially check out books. We've been increasing our bilingual library materials in our libraries for that purpose. The librarians may also be there to read with students that come in. Sometimes our community outreach assistants are working through the libraries to work with some of the students for tutoring services. So it makes those library hours more available to our families and the community beyond the school day. We buy supplemental materials for the English learner programs and our community outreach assistants. Professional learning. Some of the funds go towards some professional learning, specifically on how to teach English language development. We do a lot of parent outreach activities. We've had the Latino Family Literacy Project that's been funded through this program before. And as you'll see at the bottom there, we also try to do English as a second language classes for parents. For the last few years, pretty much since COVID, we haven't had a teacher to actually have a physical class, but we buy programs like Rosetta Stone or Alexia English that parents can utilize and can check a Chromebook or use a Chromebook to be able to access these programs. And then, as I mentioned, also we have an after-school tutoring that our bilingual community outreach assistants support families with.
I'm curious about how often are the extended hours used?
I'm sorry?
How often are the extended hours used?
Extended hours, it kind of depends on the school site, and they were being used very heavily before COVID. It's just starting to kind of build back in. You know, we're just starting to get families to come back to campus. I've been working with the library techs to talk about some different activities and things that they can do. All of them will hold like a scholastic book fair, which they have that open after school so that they can get the families to come. And then that's kind of our avenue to say, hey, we also have some additional hours that we're open. Glenwood Library tends to have a much higher usage because they have such a walking crowd. And so the parents would be there in the morning, or they would be there when the younger siblings have the first dismissal, and they would hang out and go to the library during extended day. That seems to be, for what we are finding, is kind of the most usage is when they've got younger siblings, and then they're available during that extended day. Well, the other part of that was having the bilingual community outreach assistants back in those libraries again, because then it again makes it like, oh, there's somebody here that I can speak to if I'm not an English speaker. So to your question, it was being used pretty well, but it's building its way back up. It's not where it was prior. And then the Title IV funds, these are those funds that have some restrictions in terms of the 3 different categories. A good portion of these funds we use with the nutritional field trips. So we have a field trip that Erica, our food service director, she runs for every grade level. There's a specific field trip that they do. Earlier we were discussing about nutrition and cooking and being able to use the kitchens. Actually, that is one of the field trips for our 6th grade students. I'm not sure how they work it. I know when we did it in a summer school program, one year when I was running the summer school program, we had a chef came in and they did it in the basic cafeteria area. They didn't actually work in the kitchens. They brought the things out to the cafeteria area. But each grade level has a field trip, whether it's visiting one of our local farms, but it's to learn how food gets from the earth to our tables. Sammy Circuits is a gentleman who has a program that we learned about a few years back that we've ended up really continuing with. His program and his message is all about believing in yourself and being the best you can be. It's very much engaging for our students. He has a family component to it. So every year he has an evening that the family comes with the kids. Very, very, very well attended. It's activities, but it's activities, so it's kind of physical education. At the same time, it's self-awareness, believing in yourself, and you know, he's got this nice, really nice message that he does. He did a really good job during COVID, extending that program online, and so he still has that component as well, which the teachers love to use in the classroom because, again, it's about self-esteem and believing in yourself. Playworks is new. Playworks.
So sorry.
No problem.
I'm still thinking about the library, and you're bringing up other ideas like the Sammy Circuit, and then you mentioned earlier with the younger siblings. So are these things like Sammy Circuit attached to the library or library programs? Are there books that support maybe Sammy Circuit within the library that students can check out or parents can check out? Or are there resources for preschoolers that parents can check out and draw them more into libraries so that they can attach that. The reason why I bring this up, I still remember the poster that I saw around our schools, and hopefully it's still there, that the average child who goes to college reads about 1 million more words than those who don't. So if we can plant those seeds, relate all these to getting them to reasons why they should be visiting our libraries and those extra hours that we provide. Are there connections like that?
We do try to make, there are some connections. I wouldn't say super strong connections in some areas, but for example, Sammy Circuits, his whole program starts from his own personal experience growing up and being bullied growing up. And he has written 2 children's books, which we did purchase, and we have them in our libraries, and we've purchased them. We've purchased them twice. We haven't done it every year that we've had him, but we've purchased them for the classrooms to have. And then as far as when we're doing say, for example, Latino Family Literacy Night, those type of activities, those are always held in the library so that we're bringing families to the library. The Sammy Circuit event, when it's at night, I don't think that, you're giving me an idea here, because I don't think we've opened the library necessarily when they've had that evening event, which would be a good time to open the library. I like the way you're thinking. You're giving me some ideas. So there is a little bit, but we could do a better alignment. PlayWorks is a program that Michelle Crisp, the Taylor Street principal, shared with you that she's trying this year in her plan. We will be working with them again next year, and she's been very happy with the results with them. They'll be back to start off the year for her at Taylor, and I've been talking with Robla School about potentially having that program, try that program at Robla School as well. So we've set some funds aside to be able to do that, to expand that program beyond Taylor Street School. We use some of these funds from some technology applications, Renaissance Learning, which is a reading program. So we buy licenses that are available actually to all the 5 sites. We don't buy them for all the students. We buy their expensive licenses, but we buy a percentage. So when there are students that are in intervention for reading, this is one of the resources that they can access for those families. And then social emotional learning. A Touch of Understanding is a program that brings individuals who have grown up with some type of special need. It could be anything from they've lived their life in a wheelchair, or eventually end up in a wheelchair, or maybe dyslexic. It's a variety, and they come and they tell their story. And then there's different activities. Generally, this is for the older children, 5th and 6th grade. And they'll do activities. So they have a little presentation in the cafeteria, and then they go through different stations where they get the opportunity of seeing what it's like to try to be in a wheelchair and maneuver around. What is it like if you were blind and you had to have somebody help you get from A to B? And then they even have things for, like, this is for a person who's colorblind, this is what the world looks like. Or if you're dyslexic, this is how you see things. So it's a really great program. They're hard to get. We booked them about November for next year. So we have them coming actually to 3 of our 5 sites. So these are all plans, and I've shared with you a little bit how we've used the money in the past and how we're kind of looking at using the money going forward. And because these are federal dollars and they're supplemental dollars, so they're dollars that we're using for things that are beyond our normal programs, we take this information to our DLAC and PAC committee, which is the District English Language Advisory Committee and the Parent Advisory Committee. We bring our plans and our ideas with these dollars, and we ask them if they want us to apply for them, because there's accountability that goes with applying for these dollars. If they do approve for us to apply for the dollars, then we bring it to you, the board, to share with you what we would like to apply for. And then when we do our spring consolidated application, which is the state and federal accountability reporting system for title funds, that's where I would give my accountability in terms of how we're using these dollars and that we're spending them in the timeline as required. If you approve that, it's a board action item later this evening, then I would put in the application for the funding in our spring consolidated app, which normally would be happening right now, but the state is behind. So I just finished our December one, the one that normally comes out in December. We did our winter one in June. We're thinking the spring application will be open in July. So again, these are the 5 titles. I'm assuming that I'm going to ask for Title III immigrant, assuming that we'll qualify for it. There's no harm in asking for it. Even if you don't qualify for it, they'll just tell you if you don't. Yep. And do you have any questions about those? Okay.
That was very thorough. Thank you.
It's definitely very
I
thorough.
understand all of it now. There's a few I was a little confused about, but I really understand every single title funding now. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to item D.
Welcome
California.
back. Oh, sorry. I just said welcome back.
Oh, welcome back. Yeah. California Dashboard Local Measures Update.
Okay, so we are moving into the local control accountability plan. So I've shared with you before dashboard data, but there is a new timeline. I guess we wouldn't be the state of California if we weren't always changing things around. So guess what? There's going to be a new LCAP template next year. And right now we have a new timeline. But this is really, I mean, this is actually really good changes because what they're trying to do is align all these components that are part of the local control funding formula. So the dashboard is our accountability system, and it's based on multiple measures. Some of these measures are data that the state collects, for example, the CASP scores, chronic absenteeism. So when Mr. Penman gives his report on the dashboard, you see the measures that the state adopts, or excuse me, the state collects. But there's also components that are called local measures that have to do with the 10 priorities of the local control accountability plan and the local control funding formula. So this is my presentation to you, which is part of now the timeline. So when you receive the information, when we adopt the LCAP and when we adopt the state budget, you also have this information, which is part of that accountability that is of the LCAP. And this is the information that we locally will have to enter into the California School Dashboard. So these are the state priorities. The ones in red are the ones that we collect locally. Under regulation, there are specific criteria for how you measure these different priorities. And but basically what the state has done is they've created rubrics that I go through, answer the questions on the rubrics, and then we either meet the priority or we don't meet the priority. So what I'm going to share with you here is what's on each of those rubrics for the different priorities and what our scores were in many of the cases for it. So this again is what I just stated in terms of this new timeline that we do these annual measures. We look at these different local priorities. We present that information to the board as a non-consent item on the agenda at the same time that we are approving the LCAP and the budget. So here we go. So priority one basically has to do with the Williams review. So priority one is based on your facilities, how you do on the FIT or the facility inspection tool, your teacher assignment, and your availability of classroom materials. So most of this data is also can be found in the SARC, with the School Accountability Report Card. This is the type of data that's there. The one caveat I want to talk about is the teacher misassignment. This component used to be all done local. I would meet with our chief of personnel, ask her where we are. Do we have qualified, highly qualified teachers in our classrooms? She would give me that information. This is now becoming state collected information, and they currently have 2021 data. Okay, so the data for this is a little bit behind for what the state has. I went in and got our 2022 data. So the data that I'm sharing with you is more current than what if I were to go on the state website. But by next year, this data will be in the SARCs and it will be populated by the state. Okay. So in terms of our classroom materials, we're 100% compliant. And on our facility inspection tool, we got a rating of good for all of our school sites. There was no major findings. The teacher misassignment data is a little bit more broken down and it's a little more complicated. I've had to ask Ms. Sullivan a few questions, and she's going to step up here and help me if you have any questions about this. But essentially what they do is they look at the qualifications of the teachers that you have and the assignment that they are given. So as you can see, we have 82.5 full-time equivalent self-contained classroom teachers. So these are teachers that would have a multi-subject credential. 87.3% of those are clear. 1.2 of those 82 teachers is currently an intern. And then I'm going to come back to the ineffective. The incomplete just means they didn't have enough data in the system to have complete picture for that teacher. Okay, this is also a very new system. And then the ineffective category, Ms. Sullivan, so I don't mess it with you, wouldn't mind. I don't want to say it wrong.
I'll also speak a little bit to the incomplete category. Oh, she's much taller than me. So the incomplete category, when we report our CalPADS data, it goes into what's called CalSAS, and that's the Teacher Assignment Monitoring program that runs through CTC, or the California Teacher Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Sorry, I messed that acronym up, but you guys know who I'm talking about. So when it comes to the incomplete data, that actually has to do with our special education assignments. There are still some codes that aren't available in CalPADS that are read in the data system of CalSAS. So a lot of times we have to go in and look and make sure that the teacher's credential that they hold, it's almost a manual thing, actually aligns with the IEP or the student's needs. And so it's a very common percentage to have for all districts, because there's just some misalignment between the two databases and how they communicate. And it's something the state's working on. That's okay. And then in terms of the ineffective, what that relates to is if a teacher holds what we call an emergency permit or emergency credential. And to remind the board, this data is looked at a point in time. So the first Wednesday of every month is or the first Wednesday of every October is the CalPADS date when they pull the data. And on that day, we would have had a few people that were on an emergency permit. Maybe there was a maternity leave and we had a substitute teacher in there. It doesn't mean that they don't hold a credential. It just means they don't hold a credential that meets the ESSA standards, or the Every Student Succeeds Act standards. When we do have a teacher in an assignment like that, we do make sure that we provide them supports through like our professional learning support teachers, our principal, and other groups that can make sure that they're meeting the students' needs for that point in time. They wouldn't necessarily hold the position for the year, just be for the time of the leave. And then a teacher who has a multiple subject credential and meets the ESSA standards takes over.
Do you want to go ahead and speak to like so cold?
Yes, and so you'll see in the third row down, we have 5 teachers who are listed under the computer education category in CalPADS and SACE, or CalSAS. And what that's our technology enrichment teachers, okay? Because of the age group in which they teach, so the TK6 realm, they can hold a multiple subject credential. They don't have to have the computer and technical education credential. If we were junior high or high school, they would have to have that. So again, that's another kind of coding thing in between CalPADS and CalSACE. SAS, sorry.
From my understanding, this is also a reason why the system doesn't have more current data, is because they're trying to get these systems a little more aligned, because this is a new form of state collected data. Okay. So priority 2 is the implementation of our state academic standards. So this rating, again, this is one of the rubrics that we would use. And this one is in regards to, are we providing professional learning for our teachers to be qualified, highly qualified in teaching the state adopted curriculum or state adopted standards. And the ratings, as you can see there, one is the exploration and research phase, with 5 being the fully implemented and sustainable stage. The next generation science standards we have at level 4. The full implementation, we don't have at the sustainability level yet, because we just started in these 2 years ago. We have some things to still work on to really fine tune it. Same with our history and social science. We're looking at some new curriculum potentially with the history and social science. And so again, that's why we have a rating of 4. Also in priority 2 is about the instructional materials being aligned. As you can see, we are 5s and all that. We have state adopted or state approved curriculum in all of these 5 categories of instruction. The implementation of policies and programs to support the staff. In these recent adoptions, again, I mentioned earlier the Teacher Curriculum Institute is an example of one of the things that we do to make sure that everybody has the time to understand, to fully implement the curriculum in these areas, as well as we have that professional learning or community time that the technology teachers really each grade level teacher to be able to meet to discuss. This is our progress towards implementation of the academic standards. And you'll see here career technical education, health education, and world language. World language, we have our dual immersion program. Next year, we'll have our 6th grade, so we will be fully implemented in our dual immersion program, providing a world language. The health education, we have our physical education teachers. We have health education that we do at our 5th and 6th grade level, but we don't have a real solid piece of curriculum in this area. So that's an area we still need to work on. And then the career technical education. The reason we have a 2 on this one is because much of this has to do with one part of it being that we're in elementary. What are we doing at an elementary level? And much of what we end up doing ends up being after the normal school day. So it might be, for example, a coding club that a teacher might put on, things like that. So that's why and again, it was we, meaning I, gave us a category of 2 on that one. Still in priority 2. Again, these are the rubrics that we have to fill out. Doing fine here in this area in terms of engaging and following activities for teachers and school administrators. And I'm going to move to priority 3. Any questions about priority 1 and 2? Okay. So priority 3 is in regards to our parent engagement. I'm not going to take the time to read through each of these, but again, responding to the prompts in the rubric, basically saying that we hold events on a regular basis for our parents. We hold committees for our parents to participate, and we use things like Remind app and different apps for teachers to communicate with the parents. We have school newsletters. We have a variety of different ways that we work to try and have parent engagement with our schools. And our bilingual community outreach assistants, again, are a part of this process to make sure that we're reaching out to all of our families, even those that have home language other than English. Priority 6 is in regards to school climate. Our Panorama Education Survey, which when Miss Ruby was up giving a presentation about the coordinators of school climate, she spoke a little bit to this data. I spoke a little bit to this data in another one of my presentations to you. And it's also in our LCAP, our Local Control Accountability Plan. But here are a couple of the areas that we were looking at. And one of the things that we're doing with differentiated assistance is looking at this Panorama School Climate Survey data in our work with the County Office of Education to help improve our chronic absenteeism rates, student attendance. And so we're looking at how the 3 through 5 and 6th grade responding to the survey. And the first 3 with the green arrow shows that one of the things that's really nice about Panorama Education is that we can compare ourselves to national norm data. And those first 3, we do quite well. We're in that 50th to 60th percentile, where the majority of the nation is falling in terms of how students are responding. The bottom one, our 6th grade students, feel they are a valued member of the school community. That one we are a little bit lower. So this is one that the principals are looking at and trying to come up with ideas and more information as to why they scored this way. The other two that we're looking at is in regards to the social emotional climate of the school. What was really interesting for this is the same central question for 3rd through 6th grade. One of the things in this area that the students were responding to was how other students were behaving affects how they feel about the social emotional climate of their school. Again, this is things that we are having conversations about with our differentiated system partners, the County Office of Education. School principals are looking at for their school plans. We're looking at our coordinators of school climate, working on different activities. Playworks is something that comes into this, responding to this data as well. Let me skip ahead. This was quite long. I'm sure you didn't want to read all of that right there, but access to a broad course of study. So essentially, there are certain, the broad course of study is when you offer English, mathematics, social sciences, science, visual and performing arts, health and physical education. And these are all things that we offer in this area, as well as our designated ELD, which is built into our school day for our English learners, and the different activities that we do within our district for our exceptional needs students that receive either specialized academic instruction, intervention, inclusion, or summer school programs. So again, we met the criteria in this area as well. So again, this is just in response to the two, how are we doing this? Did we find any barriers in being able to provide an access to a broad course of study for our students? And we did not see any barriers at this time. Okay, so those are our local priorities that will be on our dashboard along with the state collected data. It shows up on the dashboard as standard met for all of our local priorities. And if you have any questions in terms of this piece of data collection.
Questions, comments?
Okay.
Thank you.
Another excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Item E, William UCP Quarterly Report, Q4.
Nothing to report.
Always one of my favorite reports. We're going to go ahead and move on to action items. Item A, approve local control accountability plan for 2023-2024 school year. It's moved in second. Is there any discussion?
This is the plan that was presented at the last meeting. So tonight is the statutory required approval. Yes.
Any discussion or debate?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item B, approve adoption of 2023-24 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
The budget, of course, must support the LCAP, so that's why the LCAP comes first, and then the budget adoption so that we can carry forth with the activities we've outlined in the plan.
This is the report that we got from it last.
Exactly. That's correct.
I was not here to review that for that board meeting. Can I sit out of this vote since I don't know what's in the budget?
Yes, you can abstain.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstentions? Motion passes 4-0-1. Item C, approve 2023-24 school plan for student achievement.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate?
Again, these were presented to the board, and this is now the required approval.
We got.
And the presentations that you received, yes.
Any discussions or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item D, approve contract with Enome Inc.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
This is a new contract. This is a tool that will help our special education staff to write goals for IEP documents. There's a number of legal requirements that go along with those, and we want to be sure that we are as efficient as we can be with that. So this is a recommendation that's coming forth from Janet Horowitz in our special education department.
Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item E, approve service agreement with 4R Hearing Center.
Moved.
It's been moved and seconded.
Questions?
Any questions? Concerns? Seeing no discussion or debate, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. F, approve consolidated application for federal funding.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This is what Mrs. Lyon just talked about.
Yes. Hearing no discussion, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item G, approve paint for Taylor Elementary multipurpose room.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Gonna paint pretty pictures all over it like the kids do.
Well, I think this is the basic painting first, and then maybe the fancy painting will come later.
Any further discussion or debate? Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item H, approve contract with BT Mancini Company, Inc. for Taylor Street.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to this one?
We covered the ceiling and the walls, and now we're covering the floors.
There you go.
Can they be painted pretty pictures?
I don't think our quote included pretty pictures.
Artistic license does not come with this contract.
Oh, man.
Any further discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item I, approve agreement between the City of Sacramento and Robla School District regarding expansion of after-school education and safety for expanded learning opportunity program funding.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty large contract, so we want to be sure that the board understands that this is our expanded learning program. We began this program this year when we wrote our initial expanded learning plan to provide a longer day for students, and we decided our plan was to go forward by expanding the ACES grant, or the START program that we've had at our schools for many, many years now. So our goal this year was to go from 80 students at each school to 200 students at each school. That did not happen, unfortunately, mostly because we couldn't find enough staffing to support that. But this is the contract is now growing, the needs are growing, the city, in terms of what it needs from the contract, there's some changes there. But what we're very excited about is that this summer is our first expanded learning opportunity program, summer school. And I do want to commend the city staff for, they have funded they have been able to find all of the staff we needed to run the program that we have this summer. So our goal was to have a program for 250 students and to have enough staff to do that. And I'm happy to say that that's exactly what's happening. And what to me is really exciting about that is that many of the people that were hired for summer school are going to stay on for the new academic year. So that will allow our programs to expand in this upcoming year. And that's what this is, that's what the contract is for.
I'm assuming this program include academic supports?
Yes, the program is academic supports as well as enrichment and physical activity.
Any additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Um, like at some point, are we going to just understand the impacts of this program, and particularly how it's impacting or available to the students who we talked about before that we're having that we haven't quite identified those academic interventions for?
Yeah, I mean, definitely this is one of the ways that we can support some of our students who are struggling. I think it's important to note that an after-school program is generally staffed by college students, younger people. It is not a major intervention for our students. Those interventions need to come during the school day from some of the most qualified teachers that we have. But this is definitely another opportunity to support students academically. And the board recently approved the assistant principal positions, and those are partially funded out of expanded learning funding. So they will help to ensure that at each school, they will help oversee each program and will help oversee the academic aspect of the program. I think that's a really smart thing for us to do to move forward, to make sure that we're refining the academic supports that students are receiving. So this is not for probably the neediest students, although if some of those neediest students are in the after-school program, obviously they can get some more support. And just, I guess, to answer your question specifically, because I realized I didn't do that, we are always measuring how our students are progressing. And that's the kind of data that we're keeping when we do our benchmark assessments. And that's assessment information that we will continue to try to report regularly to the board.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments, debate, discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item J, approve Roberts Family Development Center 2022-2024 resiliency proposal, year-round parent engagement, and school year expanded learning.
Second.
What was I say, 2023-2024, right?
324.
Oh, my apologies, 2023-2024. Right, so once again, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So
Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item K, approve Roberts Family Development Center 2024 Summer Freedom School.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we will move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item L, approve school cafe school menu software. It's been moved in second. Would you like to share with us a little bit about the software?
I don't know too much about the software, to be honest with you.
Oh.
This is a request from the Nutrition Services Department, and this is to hope, in our constant efforts to improve our meals. This is part of the menu planning that there are a lot of regulations that surround the meals that we serve, and making sure that they're reimbursable, making sure that they meet all the nutritional guidelines. And so this is software that helps us to do that.
Okay.
Can I just confirm that the price, the annual cost, is for all of our schools?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, the planning happens at the district level for all of the meals. So whatever we're serving at one school, we're serving at all the schools.
Additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item M. Approve and adopt proposed specifications, location, and project budget for the proposed preschool administrative building at Bell Avenue Elementary School and proceed with the necessary procurement and design activities.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. This is what we discussed.
This was the presentation that you heard earlier tonight. So these are the beginning of the contracts that we will need in order to proceed and make those projects happen. And Mr. Flores is still here if you have any further questions.
Any discussions or debate?
Nope.
No questions? Okay, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item N, approve and adopt the budget and specifications for the design and construction of a central kitchen / cafeteria at Bell Avenue Elementary and authorize the proposed allocation of district funds to proceed with the project.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion?
You know, I just feel like one of the things I want to highlight here before the board votes is even though Mr. Flores made the presentation, Mr. Castillo was very involved in developing this plan, and he had to leave because he had a plane flight tonight. But I just want to make sure the board feels secure in the research that he has done. You know, one of the questions that we have is if we fund this project in this way, you know, is this going to jeopardize in any way our cash flow? Because we know we have the money in the reserve, obviously, but we do need to make sure that we can pay the bills every month. And you know, the board knows him well and knows that he is very thorough in his research. So this would not be coming forward if he was not on board with this. So I just want to make sure the board understands that he fully is behind this proposal.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I have to say, if it were not for his thoroughness and the way he does his job, I would not feel as comfortable voting on this.
Glad to know I wasn't the only
I
one.
think that echoes the sentiments of the entire board. Any further discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item O, approve fire alarm system for Glenwood Elementary.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion or debate?
No.
Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right, item P, approve agreement for modular construction services with Enviroplex for the Bell Avenue Preschool and Transitional Kindergarten Classrooms Construction Project.
So
Second.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to point out to the board, right, these next few items are all obviously connected to the construction projects that were presented to the board tonight. I do want to point out that S, which is here as well, is the same as Q. So we inadvertently listed the same item twice under the, so we can remove at, well, we're not to S yet, but just so you know, when we get to Q,
We can skip over
we
S.
can skip over S.
Okay.
But, you know, again, Mr. Flores is here to answer any questions you have about any of the next few items.
I would just like to add real quick to this item, if I may. Two items just for the board's information. One is that this initial approval is for the engineering design work being done by Enviroplex. The actual cost of the building itself will be an item that will be presented to the board once designs have been completed and approved by TSA. Also, this particular item and the cost of the actual building themselves is being funded by that California Preschool, Traditional Kindergarten, and Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program, which was awarded late last year. So this is being funded out of that particular grant program.
Thank you for sharing that. Any additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item Q, approve construction services agreement, site lease, and sublease agreement with Clark Sullivan Construction for the Bell Avenue Preschool and Transitional Kindergarten Classrooms Construction Project.
So move.
Second.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion or debate?
You're doing a good job.
Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item R, approve resolution number 897, making environmental findings in connection with the new preschool and transitional kindergarten classrooms project at Bell Avenue Elementary School.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion?
Just give the board a quick background. As part of all of our construction projects, we are required by the state of California to go through the compliance procedures with the California Environmental Quality Act. That is, we are required to review our projects for the impact on their surrounding environments. Under that particular act, there are a number of exemptions that a district may qualify for. If they do not qualify for those, additional environmental research needs to be done. In this particular case, for the Bell Avenue project, it was found that by Rincon that the project being proposed qualified for one of those exemptions, and that exemption specifically was that we were not increasing the capacity of the site by more than 25%, and we were not changing the use of the site. So we weren't going from commercial to educational or anything of that nature. And based on those two factors, we were qualified for an exemption from that process. We are required to adopt a resolution, say that, and file that report with the county.
Any additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item T, approve DTS licensing for 2023-2024 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Is there any discussion?
Just, to make sure the board understands, this is the software that we use for this school accountability report cards, as well as the template for the LCAPs, correct? And the school level plans. So all of that is part of this.
Any additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item U, approve Aruba Network Switch Solution proposed by Team 1 Networking under RFP 23-105.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Do you want to say anything about this, Mr. Lopez? In English?
This is for the replacement of bits that are now obsolete and need to be replaced because they're not supported by our vendors anymore. So this is our network infrastructure equipment, and it's out of date.
Okay.
Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item V, approve contract with Sounding Board fiscal year 2023-24 and 2024-25.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This is our communications consultant, and she's become a pretty instrumental part of how we do business in Robla. And so we are proposing, we did that this year, a 2-year contract, and we're proposing again a 2-year contract simply because there's still a lot of work to do.
Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item W, approve reclassification technology specialist 1.0 FTE position, CSCA, to technology specialist networking focus 1.0 FTE effective June 7th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Yeah, this is part of a reorganization that's happening in the IT department under Mr. Lopez's direction, and he is, I'm sure, happy to speak to this if you like or answer any questions. I just want to assure the board that we have conducted conversations with CSEA as we have reclassified this position, and they are on board with this change.
So I'm guessing this is basically, like you said, just changing the focus from dealing with specific, what am I looking for? Technology, computers, tablets, and all of that. And their primary focus is going to be to focus on network and.
Yeah, so this change, as Superintendent Reyes says, is part of a series of changes that we're making to make sure that our job descriptions align with what the industry standards and norms are, and which clarify what the specific responsibilities of the individuals who are in the department are responsible for. And so right now, or historically, we've had very general job descriptions that haven't been updated in a very long time. And so we're bringing up to current standards to reflect what the changes have been in our background and our context.
Excellent. Thank you. Any additional discussion or debate?
Nope.
Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item X, approve 2023-24 services agreement with Scoot Education for substitute teachers.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to this at all?
Let's have Mrs. Sullivan say a few words about this.
So this is a second vendor who will help support us in finding substitute teachers to fill our teacher vacancies when they're absent, whether it be short or long-term absences. We're really just kind of hedging our bets here to try and help make sure that we can secure a substitute for the day or for a long-term assignment. In August, I will bring to you a renewal of the contract that we have with Swing. So it's just an attempt to try and give us 2 resources for substitutes so we don't have to pull our regular staff for absences. And there's no cost change because either way, we're going to pay an organization.
Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. How could we not find 2 more items so we could use all the letters of the alphabet?
Really hard.
We already approved that.
Although we approved him like putting in a retirement date. Now he's got to leave.
I don't think we've ever gone to X before. I think that's a new one.
No, thank you. Was this a special gift for?
It's a special gift.
Special gift
We're
for
trying to
the-
keep you as long as we can. All right, we're going to move on to Section 8, Board Member Requests for Future Agenda Items or Reports.
Nothing at this
Divine.
time.
Trustee Hamilton start.
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Barnes.
Nothing at this time, although I will say this, I wouldn't, even though it's out of protocol, I wouldn't mind changing our protocol to let our superintendent gavel the session closed.
I'm not opposed to that.
What was that? I couldn't hear.
Letting our superintendent gavel the session closed.
I do too.
So,
It would be better.
with that, well, the meeting is adjourned.
Meeting is adjourned.
There you go. We made it.